Hello and welcome. This is Kristen from the Online Selling Show, and I'm here to talk about why your bottom number is way more important and how you can manage that number and impact your business way more than looking at the top number. To give you an example of where I came from and why I had to learn this the hard way, was I got into Amazon in the FBA beta program, and at that time, it was like everything you touched turned to gold. There was no competition, whether it was through the brand itself. There was times where the brands weren't even on the platform. You could just see them in a trade show and bring them to the marketplace. Amazon themselves were also adding to the marketplace by bringing a lot more buyers over. So every day I was getting this false sense of being this successful entrepreneur, because I'm telling you, for years, my daily sales over the year prior were just growing and growing and growing. And my yearly sales were growing, obviously, and I would get to these points where it was like, oh, I want this much more next year. Oh, I want this much more that next year. But I really wasn't paying attention to the bottom line because I was being told I was making a profit. I couldn't tell you what the profit margin was. I just knew I was making money. And during this same time period, Amazon was not really reining us sellers in. They were getting a lot of stuff shipped to them. They really weren't giving us any feedback, things like sell-through numbers, or giving us expenses that were typical expenses like prep fees. So we were doing a lot of things. It was considered the wild, wild west. And things started to come to a head for me when I started realizing, like, I'm really making these consistent sales with a brand, but the invoices were coming due, and why am I struggling to make the payment to them? And that should have been the first place that I stopped and reined back in. Truthfully, I was still working my full-time job. I was a young mother, or a mother to a young child, I guess is what I should say. And it was getting to a point where it was just easy enough to overlook because there was still so much money coming in. And that all came to a head for me when I had near bankruptcy happen, because Amazon started reining us in, but also at the same time, I had run out of space physically to process all of these shipments for FBA at my on-site warehouse, that I went to a fulfillment center. And they promised me the sun, the moon, and the stars, and could not deliver on time. They started charging me excessive fees for the processing that was over and above anything they quoted me. And there really was no recourse that I had. If you can envision that, basically my goods were in several states away in a locked building and away from me during the busiest time of the year, and they were all holiday goods. Through the grace of God, having a loan, and the assistant that was with me by my side through that, I was able to get out of it. And the experience for me during that made me really have to take a look at how I was going to be able to do anything for my business to keep it going. And I did have a bookkeeper at the time that thankfully, she was there to do some of this discussion of me learning how to read I kind of had an idea how to read my books and stuff, but we kind of had a discussion, and I remember her telling me this. You have to remember, and let's go through an example first, is it's not so sexy to say I was able to keep $10,000 in my business last year. It's not really sexy to say I had a 10% profit last year. It's just not. But I'm telling you, like, a 10% profit in business is usually a very good indication that you would be considered doing great. I mean, a company like Walmart, I can guarantee you, isn't running on a 10% profit. I don't even need to look it up, and I can probably guarantee you that. There's probably big businesses out there that if they run on a 5% profit margin, that is what their aspirations are. Here's the example on how you're looking at that, is most people think it's more sexy to say I made $100,000 last year. Well, if you made $100,000 in a year and the net that you got to keep after everything was paid and said and done was $10,000, you're in a 10% profit margin. But most people are out there and you're thinking about, like, oh, I made $100,000 next year. Oh, I made $100,000. Like, isn't that great? But if you're not worried about the profit margin or what the bottom line is, you're going to miss so much. And that's what I did, as I missed so much. I was spending money thinking, oh, I have to get to, I'm doing this big business. I have to get to this seminar to learn more. I have to spend the $1,500 to be there because I need to learn more. I'm this big seller, right? Or I would be spending $30 for some kind of new book, software, whatever it was. Because to me, I mean, it was going to make my life faster, quicker, easier. And it's so easy to spend this money because you're looking at the top line all the time, saying to yourself, well, I have to have that if I'm going to be this six-figure seller or whatever it's going to be. And one of the things I realized once I started reining it in, and I have a 10% profit margin, she had indicated to me, was that every dollar I spent made it that I needed $10 less on the top. So in other words, if I was able to save myself, let's say $500 a month in expenses, that meant I needed $5,000 less a month in sales. And I think if many of us were given the opportunity to say, could you cut $300 out of your bills in a month, or could you add $3,000 on your top line in a month? I think a lot of us would back off and be like, I don't think I can get $3,000 in by the first of next month. But if many of us were said, can you find a way to save $300 a month? I think most of us could react much quicker on being able to cut that expense and get that instant savings than trying to add a $3,000 a month amount to the top line, because I think we have to build up for that. So this is where the lesson was that I came in to teach you about, was every dollar that you're saving on that bottom line, or understanding how you got to that bottom line so you can determine where those cuts can be, is going to be a benefit for you in the business world. Because like I said, if you're able to go out and source, let's say, a cheaper box per se, and that box is one that you use every third shipment, and you only save 10 cents, that is going to start adding up. And it may seem like it's only 10 cents, but if you add that 10 cents with now saving on the tape, and now being able to do something, maybe you can lower the cost of the heating or air conditioning in the building. Maybe you put it on a timer, so now you don't have it running all night long. And then maybe you can work more yourself and not need your employee more. There is definitely ways that when you start getting a little bit more creative and a little bit more cost cutting in mind, you can get the bottom line aligned with the top number being in alignment, so that you can be making in between, getting those expenses in between in line. It's going to get those two in line so that you can become more comfortable. You can start being more proactive in saying, okay, well, if I want to hire that other employee, how much do I need? You're going to know how much you need, because you're going to know how much that expense is going to drive the top number for the number on the bottom to bring you home what you need. I hope this makes sense. If you have any comments on this topic, please leave them down below, or questions, please leave them down below. I will try to help you as best I can. Some of this you are going to need to have somebody in the books with you to help educate you, train you on these things. I know for me, I still have anxiety over a lot of the things in my bills. I still don't feel that I'm so confident on some things. But realistically, I can sit down with my CPA or my bookkeeper and have a conversation, and I know it. I just don't want to acknowledge it sometimes. It's like losing weight. Do we really want to step on that scale? Probably not for 99% of us, but sometimes you have to do that. And if you're feeling that pressure in your business right now that you're not really getting where you want, that should be the first indicative reasoning for you to get on the scale. Make a phone call, get yourself a CPA, get into your books, start recognizing, I mean, there's a lot of expenses that I think a lot of us have. I mean, I know there's programs and software to find the hidden subscriptions you didn't know about. There is not just hidden subscriptions. There's a lot of hidden bills that I think some of us just don't even remember having, spending, being, doing, have. So I want to say bye for now, and I'll catch you on the next one.